Good evening, good morning to all participants, panelists, speakers, and our entire team at ICCW. I am Shripati. Once again would have the pleasure of welcome you all to the last day of this webinar series on rainwater harvesting. Today happens to be the World Environment Day. And the theme, as we all know, it is time for nature and time for us to celebrate our efforts that we have been doing for so many decades and days and so on. Now I invite our Professor Pradeep to share a few thoughts on this entire webinar series and on the World Environment Day as well. Over to Professor Pradeep.
Greetings to you on the World Environment Day. The theme for the Environment Day 2020 is Time for Nature. It's a time to celebrate nature, its diversity. Even the smallest species on the planet need your care. Concern for the other is in fact the greatest human characteristic. It's in fact embedded in democracy. One day, a child asked Mahatma Gandhi, "Bapu, can you please define democracy?" Bapu said, "Imagine that you are running a race and you have won it. When you win, remembering that there were others to lose is democracy." Then he said, "If you run alone, no one will win." Care for the minority, the underprivileged, in the current context, the marginalized species is in fact concern for the other. It is the greatest human gift. We are here on this planet as nature enabled it. This enormously complicated ecosystem and its very delicate balance is evident in this COVID hit period. If you do not see that complexity and yet simplicity, there is something wrong in our education. One of our philosophers said, nature is man's inorganic body. There is no need to go outside to celebrate diversity and nature. That diversity is within you, in the form of organisms within you. The microbiota in your intestine must tell you about the coexistence and the collectivity. There is so much to learn from nature. I will greet you now with this picture that you see on the screen. This picture is called the Earthrise, taken on December 24, 1968 by Apollo 8 astronaut William Andrews. This picture is called the most influential environmental photograph ever taken. You can see a bit of the lunar surface that is here at the bottom and the rising Earth. And what a powerful picture to say that all you have is this little planet in this isolated place. Everything, all our hatred, emotions, all our love, as Carl Sagan said, all our love, all our emotions, everything is confined to this little space. And in that little space, the most important for us today in this discussion is this triatomic molecule water. And I'm glad that we are celebrating that molecule in this webinar series. Today, we have two fantastic speakers, Dr. Saravanan and Ms. Shanta Sheila Nair, the one telling us about capacity building, the other telling us about policy. And both are equally important in making rainwater harvesting a reality. And we'll conclude this today with Jagat Singh Chowdhury, an eminent environmentalist who with his life he has shown that a small little land can be converted to a natural rainforest. What a wonderful way to celebrate the World Environment Day. Thank you very much.
Sir. Thank you, Professor, for the guiding suggestions on how do we really take ourselves in this time of crisis and beyond. How do we really think about ourselves, leaving out all the things that you said, emotions and so on, to contribute to the society. I hope we will live up to those words that you mentioned, and we will try and do our best. So with this, I would like to invite Dr. Saravanan. He's Associate Professor at the Anna University Center for Water Resources. And today he has kindly consented to share his thoughts in the absence of Dr. Ambujam, who is the professor of Anna University and the Center for Water Resources. So Mr. Nandakumar would be able to share the screen on the PPT.
I will make it. I will share.
Okay. So Associate Professor Dr. Saravanan, please. You can start your presentation. The time available would be around 35 minutes, sir.
Okay. Is it okay? Is it
Yes.
visible?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. I am here to present the rainwater harvesting and capacity building. My content of presentation goes like this: importance of water, rainwater harvesting, and artificial recharge, the factors that affect the rainwater harvesting mechanism, and the different types of methods of rainwater harvesting methods, and case studies related to rainwater harvesting, which was carried out by the Center for Water Resource, and the capacity building and skill development ideas related to rainwater harvesting. Now, the first slide talks about importance of water. If you see the picture, you can understand very well. Once you carry your own water, you will learn the value of every drop of water actually. And as you all aware, the global water source is constant. You can't create the water as well as you can't destroy the water. It will convert from one form to other form. Our duty is to only to manage the water actually. So this the graph indicates the global water availability, and which you all aware. Now coming back to the hydrological cycle, the important component here is that around 80% of the global precipitation will take place on the ocean, and 20%, 10 to 20% will take place on the ocean. Now you must be aware how precious is rainwater harvesting, and therefore the keyword of sustainable water management is nothing but rainwater harvesting. And the Chennai receives nearly 1,200 mm as the annual average rainfall, and Indian annual average rainfall is nearly 700 mm. Now the rainwater harvesting. The rainwater, we have several definitions for rainwater harvesting. Here I would like to quote the rainwater harvesting as: the raindrops are collected and stored at the surface as a subsurface aquifer for the future use rather than allowing them to run out. So this is the oldest method of self-supply of water for households, and generally financed by the user actually. And this is some of the two pictures taken from Mexico as well as Madhya Pradesh of India, traditional rainwater harvesting practices. Now coming back to the difference between the natural as well as artificial recharge. The natural recharge refers to the precipitation which falls on the land surface that infiltrates into the soil and moves through the pore spaces down to the water by gravity. So generally it takes place from the leaking of aquifers, rivers, streams, and lakes and wetlands. So normally, on an average, the 10 to 20% rainfall will get recharged towards the groundwater by natural means actually. But if you want to alter the natural recharge, you can go with the injecting the water by altering the infiltration capacity. That means the excess surface water can be directed into the ground by spreading of the surface water to a large extent, as well as you can inject to the recharge wells and you can replenish the aquifer. This kind of method is called as an artificial recharge. So both are by gravity, but this is a forced one actually. Now, the factors affecting rainwater harvesting. There are so many factors are affecting rainwater harvesting. Broadly, we can classify as a 4 category. One is environmental factor, technical factor, economic factor, and operational factor. So I would like to emphasize only few points on all these factors: the rainfall, intensity, catchment area, curve number, and curve number. These are all the main important parameters for estimation of the runoff potential. And this is the simplest calculation is given to estimate the runoff potential. And generally we estimate the runoff potential in terms of volume, and whereas the recharge will be in terms of meter per day. That is nothing but the rate of recharge. So there is a difference between these two things, you are aware. This figure will indicate how to estimate the volume of water that one can harvest from the surface, either from the rural catchment or from the urban catchment, as well as the rate of recharge capacity of any recharge mechanism can be estimated with these two figures. For example, if you want to estimate the volume of runoff, it requires the catchment area and rainfall depth multiplied by the runoff coefficient, which is nothing but a curve number. If you multiply, you will get a volume of water. With this, you can plan how much water you want to conserve it in a lake or ocean, as a lake, river, or ponds, and wherever you want. Whereas in case of recharge rate, if you want to estimate, you must know what is the wetted area of the well or recharge pit, and nothing but circumference area into hydraulic conductivity of the medium. Once you multiply these two factors, then you will come to know that how much water exactly you can inject from your recharge shaft or recharge mechanism to the ground, because there is a balance, but there is a relation between the how much head you are creating as well as how much water it can penetrate into the ground. Now this slides clearly will indicate the difference between the urban catchment and rural catchment. The left side figure indicates the rural catchment, where you can experience less runoff, whereas the right side catchment is the urban catchment, you can expect more runoff. Let us assume that if you experience the same intensity of rainfall in both urban as well as rural catchment, then what kind of runoff you can expect? Here is that the graph indicates, in case of rural catchment, you will get a peak is very less, or the less runoff because it is more pervious, whereas in case of urban catchment, it is very impervious. You will get a huge runoff with short period of time. Therefore, you must decide what type of rainwater harvesting structures that you have to select for urban as well as rural catchment. Either you want to store it on the surface or groundwater actually. Now, the hydrogeology is the other factor which influences on your rainwater harvesting mechanism. The hydrogeology plays an important role on deciding a type of rainwater harvesting mechanism because it depends on the aquifer properties actually. Now, the movement of water generally into the soil is governed by two forces. One is gravitational force and other one is surface tension force. So these forces are the predominant force which makes sense to allow the water from top surface to the ground actually. So if you take the sand, loam, and clay, the sand will absorb more because the gravitational force will be very high than the surface tension force. Whereas in case of clay, the surface tension force will be more than the sand actually. That's why this will adhere a lot of water, which won't allow easily to the ground. Therefore, if you want to be a rainwater harvesting designer, you should understand these behaviors to design your rainwater harvesting structures as well as filter based on the hydraulic conductivity. Now, the groundwater movement actually. The groundwater movement, nothing but whatever the water is entered into the ground is generally called as a groundwater. The specific definition is nothing but the water which is available below saturation of the water table is called as the groundwater. This groundwater flow is governed by the Darcy's law, which is nothing but K is equal to V in time. Generally, the groundwater flow is very slow. From this figure, right side figure, you can understand it takes days, years, decades to move from one place to other place. That means it is a slow process. All your groundwater process will follow the flow through porous medium theory, which is nothing but the Reynolds theory actually. Generally, the Reynolds number for groundwater flow through soil porous medium will fall within the range of 1 to 10, less than 10. This right side image will indicate how the laminar flow as well as turbulent flow will take place. When this laminar flow is nearly around 1600 mm, and you think about when the groundwater flow is less than 1 mm, that means it is 1600 times less than the velocity of the flow, what you are seeing here. Therefore, groundwater velocity is very minimum, very slow. Therefore, the recharge or injection, it takes its own time to recharge the groundwater table. That's what I want to emphasize here actually. But this figure also indicates, suppose if you recharge 5 liters of water in the gravel medium, immediately to absorb all the 5 drops. Whereas in case of clay, it takes only 30% or 10%, less than 10% into the ground. Now, coming back to so these are the mechanisms are highly required for one to decide the what type of rainwater harvesting mechanism to decide in rural as well as urban catchment. We have the broadly 4 types of mechanism. One is a direct surface technique and direct subsurface technique, and the combination techniques as well as indirect techniques. So these 3 techniques are almost you are familiar. The indirect techniques are nothing but it is forced injection and it is a pressure injection. Suppose the cracks are not available, the porous medium is not available within the ground the geological formation, you can blast the ground and you can make the artificial fractures and you can inject the water into the ground. Coming back to the urban rainwater harvesting type, generally we harvest the rainwater from the stormwater and roof, and which will be harvested in the recharge pit, trench, tube well, and recharge well. In case of rural, we have several methods we will discuss in the due course. Now, the rainwater harvesting in the urban area. So, when you are deciding the rainwater harvesting in urban area through either stormwater or roof water, so the recharge pit is the suitable when you have a roof area of nearly 100 meters square and shallow water table depth is available. In case of recharge tanks, where you have the shallow water table level as well as when the catchment area ranges from 200 to 300 meters square, then trenches are preferred. Then existing tube well, you can also use the existing tube wells as well as the abundant tube wells, and you can harvest the stormwater as well as the roof water to inject into the aquifer, either confined or in the unconfined aquifer medium. Suppose in a short spell, because due to climate change, you can experience the rainfall intensity will be very short, will very high within a short period of time. So in those times, the heavy rainfall will take place in short period of time, then the runoff will be very huge within short period of time. At that time, if you want to store the water as well as inject the water, for which you have to seek the help of the combined method, nothing but the trench as well as the recharge shaft. Actually. Now, this is other method. It's a portable as well as the what you call ornamental method, and it's all derived from our indigenous technology. It is a rain saucer. You can portable. You can take it anywhere, and this can be installed at the gardens and wherever the lawns are available. Now, most of the people are thinking about rainwater harvesting done by roofs and other things, harvest and in the drums and other the tanks and other things like that. The fellow from US, in 2000, the Richardson, he thought that when most of the water companies are around the world are digging deeper and taking the water from the ground and using for the water, bottling the water actually, whereas he seeked the source of water from the sky, and he harvested from the rooftop and filtered the water with UV light and reverse osmosis before packing. And he estimated that the 3 centimeter rainfall, which falls over the 1,000 square feet of the land, would yield nearly 2,082 liters of clean water actually. Now, coming back to the rainwater harvesting systems in rural area actually. We have several methods. The one is the plug and gully, the contour bund method. This method is basically used to conserve soil moisture in the watershed for a long period of time. This is more suitable for the low rainfall the area. And this is the Gabin structure, which try to obstruct the flow temporarily and commonly constructed across the small streams to conserve the water and improve the local groundwater table level in and around. And the percolation tank. Generally, the percolation tanks are preferred where you have the high fractured rocks as well as high fractured as well as weathered rock available, as well as downstream of a tank should have a sufficient number of wells, as well as the cultivable land. If it is available, then these methods are preferred to benefit towards the benefit of the command area people actually. Then the check dams, or it is also called as a cement plugs, or it's also nulla bunds, and which is highly suitable across the small streams, have a gentle slope. The slope should be very mild, and generally the structures are recommended less than 2 meters, and basically to retard the flow for certain time to recharge the groundwater actually. Then the recharge shaft. Recharge shaft is widely used in tanks and lakes, and to infiltrate the lower unconfined aquifer by means of the recharge shaft. And the subsurface dikes or dams. So this is one of the unique method which is normally used, where you have a shallow impervious layer and wide valley and narrow outlet. If you have, then you can harvest most of the rainwater within this region, and you can store within the upper confined aquifer by means of subsurface dike. This is one of the is a site-specific condition actually. Now coming back to the capacity building, I would like to talk about something about our own center of Anna University. The Center for Water Resource is established in 1971 and is a pioneer center in carrying out the rainwater related studies and capacity building for the past 3 decades at different to different agencies, namely government and non-governmental organizations at various capacities as a consultant, as implementing agency, as an expert, and so many other things. And I would like to proudly say that the Times Higher Education has ranked Anna University in water resource as the 7th in the world among 800 odd universities in the world. This is due to our focus towards the sustainable development goals. The center has a faculty members from diverse discipline of water resource and water resource engineering and management, and they expert in the various tools and softwares related to water resource management. We are fully equipped to develop the capacity building at any level. And the center also offers the PG programs like hydrology, water resource engineering, and irrigation water management, which enable students to build the capacity in the field of water management. And the rainwater harvesting are incorporated in our syllabus to both undergraduate as well as postgraduate to build the capacity of the students. The center also conduct frequently workshops, training program, stakeholders meeting related to water management as part of capacity building. And center conducted this is a special training referred by Madam Swandasila Nair Madam 2004 as part of success case study of the Urani case study. We have conducted a capacity building program on regeneration of Uranis for Panchayat President of Tamil Nadu. Now I would like to present 2 case studies which is carried out by Center for Water Resource as well as the State Office of Anna University. The first case study is on hydrological study of regeneration of Uranis, basically surface water management. This project mainly focused on drinking water purpose for rural village, which is a pilot project by the RD department, which was initiated by Madam Swandasila Nair in 2004. And this was implemented jointly by RD department, Center for Water Resource, CAS Anna University, as well as Dawn Foundation. And the tank, which is the small tank which I taken from the Kanchipuram district, Ederu village and Thirukkalkundam block. The name of the Urani is called Sultan Mir Urani, and we have estimated the demand for the total year. Since the 3 months is going to be the rainy season, we have considered only 9-month demand as a capacity to design the Urani. So we arrived nearly 2,400 meter per year is the demand or drinking water demand for the Urani at the rate of 25 LPCB. And this is the demand calculation we have estimated for the annual demand as well as 9-month demand, including all the losses. So if you exclude all the losses for 9-month demand, works out to be nearly 2,400 metric cube. And this is our one of the professors and faculty team who was Ravi Kumar and Krishnaveni Madam, also the pioneer in carrying out this Urani project, and carried out the what you call GA survey and survey carried out to delineate the what you call catchment in terms of contours, other things. By delineating the catchments, we are able to identify the flow direction, from which direction the water will flow towards the tank that we designed. And we also identified the catchment and land use pattern of the Urani. And this is the barren land, this is the agricultural land. We also recommended to fence the region not to allow the cattle for grazing as well as open defecation. And this is the renovation before Urani. And this is the renovation, during the renovation, he's one of the German expert, Walter, and is a former professor car making. He was also known for rainwater harvesting. This is the silt trap, and this is the what do you call the filter, which horizontal filter, which provided the bottom of the Urani tank. From here, we are connected the what do you call the collection system. The village people are not allowed to enter into the well. Instead, they will be allowed to withdraw the water from the this well. So the water will the well will receive the water from the horizontal filter. So this is the status of the Urani after rainwater, and this is silt which is accumulated in the periodically will be removed, and this is the water which is being pumped from the well, and this is after the rain in 2015. So now you can assume, and even the one small tank is able to make a significant difference on drinking water demand. And think about, we have Tamil Nadu totally 39,000 tanks, and we can do a lot of wonder. Now I would like to present a second case study on the rainwater harvesting, which is implemented in Anna University. Of course, the Sivakumar also is with us in the panel list, and he also visited, based on the request by our Vice Chancellor, he visited our campus. Also, he has given his expertise actually. So this is our campus map of Anna University, which consists of 4 campuses: CEG, SAP, ACTech, as well as the MIT campus. This is a quarters area, and the total area is nearly 2,246 hectares, and this is where our Center for Water is located. And the rooftop harvesting capacity at Center for Water Resources we have implemented 3 decades back, with a capacity of nearly 12 lakhs liters of capacity, and with the roof area of nearly 3,036 meters square. So there are 2 tanks available with open sump capacity of 3.5 liters and underground sump capacity of 8.8 liters. This is the top view of the open sump here, and this is the underground sump everywhere. This is the rooftop of a CWR. And this is the gutter provided is open sump with the 3.5 liters capacity, collection pipe, low level tank, and collection pipes. So this is a roof area. This is our postgraduate laboratory. The entire building is standing above the underground tank, where you can store nearly 10 lakhs capacity of water within this area. So we have a deep, almost 30 feet deep well, which was initially constructed by more than 40 years back for hydraulic experimental purpose by harvesting rainwater. Still, we are using this well for our own rainwater harvesting. And one important thing is, all our hydraulics laboratory for the 30 decades, we are the water requirement for the students we are meeting only from rainwater harvesting. This is the excess flow from the tank whenever rainfall will be excess, and it will be diverted to the ground actually. Now coming back to the campus rainwater harvesting, the technical support is provided by the Center for Water Resources as well as Geology Department, implemented by the Estate Office as well as deans of various campuses. So we have nearly 246 hectares of land, and we have used nearly 46,986 meters square of area for rainwater harvesting. This is our campus map, and with the help of the Geological Department, Dr. Ilago, we have carried out the restivity survey to find out the geological formation at various various places of CEG campus, and we have estimated the soil profiles to suggest what kind of recharging pits and things can be recommended. Is Professor Ilango sir, and at various level we carried out. Now this is a consolidated the geological formation of the Anna University is represented here. The topsoil, and it's a fractured chornacite and weathered chornacite and a massive chornacite. This is a general formation of our Anna University campus geological formation. These are all the open well and existing bore wells which are already existing and proposed based on our geological investigation. And most of the wells are utilized for, and open wells are utilized for our own rainwater harvesting. And to identify the suitable location for rainwater harvesting, we also did a DEM, distillation model, to know the flow directions, accumulation flow direction. These are all the flow accumulation direction, and to find out the suitable location for the recharge. And based on that, this is our open ground. We have proposed the suitable locations for the recharge shaft, trench, and pits based on the volume of water. And this is in the CEG campus, CEG hostels, and our hostel blocks. And this is some of the photograph which indicates the filter medium and other things. And then this is the contribution by by the alumni of 69 batch with a harvesting capacity of nearly 14 lakhs liters in a year. they have funded, and that with the total roof area of 1,600 square meter, and with runoff coefficient, we are able to capture nearly 14 lakh liters in a year. This is the what you call view of the hostel as well as the mega mess structure. These are some of the photographs in academic zones which have executed rainwater harvesting, and this is in the hostel zones. Now, coming back to the capacity building. The capacity building is nothing but the process by which individuals and organizations can gain and retain the skills and knowledge, tools, equipment, and other resources need to do on their own competently. So one, if you want to be a successful rainwater harvester, and as part of capacity building process, one should have the knowledge of the following. And broadly, the environmental aspect and technical aspect and the economical aspect as well as operational aspect. So the important point under the category of environmental aspect, one should know the rainfall intensity and distribution. And when it comes to the technical aspect, catchment, roof type, slope, runoff coefficient, geology, water potential, and etc. As well as the budget is one of the important constraints, and it's a construction, the cost and O&M cost actually. And one should also aware what is the policies of the organization as well as the government regulation which is available on rainwater harvesting. And besides, the stakeholders should also possess knowledge in the following area. One should understand what is the indigenous knowledge available with us, and that can be used for most of our site-specific condition. Therefore, a knowledge about the development of indigenous rainwater harvesting systems for our this condition, and understand the process of rainwater harvesting framework, one should know as a conceptualization as well as the site characteristics in view of hydrological and hydrogeological point of view, and economics, how much cost will be involved, how much cost you have, as well as you should also have the alternatives and which method I can go based on the area as well as the size and the cost actually. And you should also know, if you want more information, one should know the resource centers wherever is available or organizations available, like government agencies like FAD Board, CWB, and the Rain Center and other departments, other the allied departments. So conducting regular workshops which are aware, training program, stakeholders meeting, and community awareness again is one of the important things. And coming back to the academic point of view, to build the capacity of the students, offering a course on rainwater harvesting and targeting participants in the particular discipline, focusing on designing and construction activities so that once they graduate, they will be in a position to design a rainwater structure and they can able to execute in a better way by understanding all our technical and the environmental parameter actually. The course should emphasize on success stories, case studies, and field trips related to the rainwater harvesting. Now, the skill development for the practicing engineer. So, towards the skill development for practicing engineer, we have to design a course of nearly 2 to 4 weeks and with the certificates so that they'll be entitled to do the rainwater harvesting in the public or in the market. A hands-on experience should be given and design of rainwater harvesting structures related to urban, rural, agriculture as well as institutional area, and so that they will be get experience in hand. They'll be very familiar to implement, and for which you can conduct a small sort of vocational training. And the best practice in each of the above area ought to be highlighted as a case studies to the practice engineer. And also they should aware the exposed to regulations and norms of rainwater harvesting is very, very essential. And coming back to the skill development for the construction workers, they should be given exposure to the various RW structures and simple thumb rule rather than seeking the help of all technical, environmental and economic background. They should know the thumb rule. If this is a structure, this is the area, this is the soil condition, and this is structure. That kind of capability we have to build, and skill development we have to import. Quantification and estimation material cost also that should be imported, and layout of plumbing and electrical line for electricals, and optimizing pipe size, fittings, wires, pumps, and all other things are also the part of skill development program. And finally, the field visit to see existing rainwater structures to evaluate its performance is the key most important of skill development. So we
have one more minute, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to conclude. Success of rainwater harvesting lies here. The rainwater harvesting will be very effective when it is carried out as a mass implementation. It is not an individual business; it is everybody business. So, thanks to the then Chief Minister bringing out the what you call Rainwater Harvesting Act as a mandatory of course, the contribution also from Madam Sandra Selani, Madam. So thank you for the time given for me to present within half an hour all our thoughts actually. Thank you. If you have any
Thank you,
queries,
Dr. Saravanan. Thank you, Dr. Saravanan, for the elucid presentation on several basic facts that we need to take care of for runoff, stormwater, recharge, and rooftop harvesting structures, and the capacity building initiatives that we need to take, and what the Anna University is doing currently for several years, or several stakeholders put together. You mentioned several examples, and the stalwarts of these examples are with us today in this call. Mr. Nair, Sri Shekhar Raghavan, and Mr. Shivakumar from Bangalore, Mr. Vijay our earlier speaker. Many of them are there in this call today, and we should say we are blessed to have all of you at this point of time to have such beautiful thoughts from you to take it forward. And we are flooded with several activities to be done when we started this, or when we are ending this webinar series today. Now, I would like to quote one small verse from Tirukkural that we keep following in Tamil Nadu. We say, Katrathu kaiman alavu, kalladhu ulagalavu. In the sense, whatever we have learned so far is very, very small. We need to learn a lot. It is something like a sky that we have to learn. Ulagalavu means it's something like a big world that we need to learn, where lots of things have to be learned still. From your presentation, we thought we have to learn a lot again and do several things collectively. As you said in the end, mass movement has to be done. Now, I will not take much time, and I would like to bring in Mrs. Nair, Sheila Nair, a retired IAS officer who joined us yesterday also, and who has been a part of the championing work the state of Tamil Nadu has been doing on rainwater harvesting. She will give some highlights on how the good governance will help us in achieving this mass movement that we are looking in for.
Let me just take through the evolving of the policy and how the policy has evolved, and how we ensured success in the initial year 2003. What was the contribution to the policy, both its making and its execution. So first thing that I would like to say is that the concept of rainwater harvest was initiated as early as 1994 by the Metro Water, and at that time I was in the Metro Water, but the predecessor had initiated the work of rainwater harvesting a quantity building. I will before you screen, which was the work from 1994 on 94 to 2000. I will little clear if you see. So the 94 we started, 2002 we improved it, 2002 we improved some more amendments, and in 2003 the law was passed which made it possible for making it mandatory for the states. Now, what was the difference? Earlier we had initiated the action in terms of the groundwater legislation and the bidding rules. Later on, when the ordinance was passed and the law was made, we made amendments to the law itself, both in the municipality rules and laws and the Groundwater Act, made it mandatory for all buildings for the first time and only for buildings. This was the new thing that was introduced. The most important point that I would like to say as a former bureaucrat is that the efforts from 94 to 2003 were mostly bureaucrat-led, and they had limited success relatively. It was only when political will was coming that it became a much more serious affair, became much more successful in its in the concept being acted and implemented. Most important was that it was the first time that a political election manifesto talked about rainwater harvesting. And this is an important point that all of you have to understand, that unless it is housed at political level and becomes an issue in an election manifesto, it does not gain the priority which the government would normally give it. So as soon as it was mentioned in the election manifesto, and after the part which said in the election manifesto came to power, it all coincided with a drought-like situation in Chennai, and there was immediate response for making this compulsory. And at that time, the Honorable Chief Minister was Madam Jayalalitha, and she was. We told her of the need for immediately taking this up, and by that time, I was no longer Retro Water, I was Secretary Water Supply. And it gave me a great opportunity to use the political will and leadership that's available for taking this forward and implementing this policy. So first they announced giving it a year's time, and we gave it a month's time when we found that it was not going well. A lot of preliminary work was done in terms of creating awareness. And I must tell you very clearly that there are lots of options for us, and one of the options which everybody was talking about was the need to give incentives. That we had let's give incentives to people who do rainwater harvesting, and I was firmly against it. I am so glad I was against it, because had it not been so and we had given incentives, there would have been a rainwater scam by now. With people saying that much were given and rainwater harvesting were not up, and it would give more attractive than the fame it now has. I think it is important that we don't that people need to be told to go only through incentives of some kind. We made it very clear that it was in their interest and in the interest of Chennai as a whole. A lot of very good IC material was prepared, a lot of celebrity endorsement was there. There was a groundswell of support for the move. In fact, some opposition parties at time went to court and tried to stall it, saying it's a draconian law, they give only very little time, and how can we all do, and we are all old buildings and things like that. But even courts, the judges are so sensitized to the idea of water harvesting that no court interfered, and we had an excellent run of complete support from the executive, from the judiciary, and all quarters for it, and that was what gave environment which it was successful to do. This is one part of the second part of it. While no incentives were being announced, we did announce the penalty, and penalty was both in terms of severing the water connection if it's not done, but also more importantly saying that we will cut the sewage connection. And that I think creates more of an impact than even the water connection being connected, because people will buy water from the lorry mafia, people who are willing to come immediately with a lorry water to. But if your sewage connection was cut, where would go? So there was, and this was really serious. And Madam, being kind of person that she was, when she made this announcement, took seriously. And that was, I think, a very good point, because saying that sewage connection would be cut really got people a little worried, and everybody is to implement rainwater harvest system. And how we implemented, I just like to share with you the some part of the water harvesting in ground level. Yesterday, I think I probably made some mention of this, but this is the level of impact more harvesting and after rainwater harvesting. This is a small graph to hold up to. Just show you that there is considerable impact in terms of the levels of water supply. So it is also important that the harvesting which has been out taught all the analysts and other experts is not only a means of improving the level of water supply in the ground, but it's also a means of improving the quality of the water in the ground. It contributes to diluting the salts, diluting iron content, diluting fluoride. Arsenic, it doesn't help much, but all the other problems with water quality are very much addressed by rainwater harvesting and rejuvenation of aquifers by in terms of quality. And I would just like to show this to you to show you. I don't know how clear it is, but gives you an idea of the levels of quality improvement in the water and the levels of quantity improvement. So there's a big case for rainwater harvesting to be done, not merely to increase the supply in terms of groundwater aquifer recharge, but certainly also to take to areas which have iron content, which have water impurities, water, particular fluoride. I was later secretary to the government of India in the water supply department, and we took it to area of fluoride contamination, and we found a considerable impact in reducing fluoride levels to consumable to ppms which are considered safe. And this was a great revelation to us, and we have to promote water harvesting as something which not only improves the quantity of water available in the aquifer, but also the quality of water available. So this is an important point that I would like to make. The last point I would like to say is that water harvesting is seen very much as a source of water supply, and I would like to talk in terms of a water management policy which takes care of water availability in terms of surface water, groundwater, and rainwater. Today, even now, the most of the water management plans are with reference to groundwater and surface water. We are not taking into account the quantities of rainwater that is available and how we would use them. In fact, the point that I would like to make in this webinar is that we need to have not merely rainwater harvesting policy, we need to have rainwater management policy itself. And the rainwater management policy is, we think of rainwater in two aspects. It's a disaster if there's flood, it's a disaster if there's drought. In the northern rain, what do you do with rain, how you manage rainwater is not something that we pay much attention to, and I think the time is now for us to have a plan for knowing what the total rainfall available. How much is required to be conserved, how much is required to be put into aquifers, and how much is required for normal flow. There is a need for water flow to the downstream also. We are very quick to make them all over the place and harvest water all over the place, but then that will deprive, if it is done in excess, it deprives the lower riparians of their rights to the surface runoff from the rains. And there is ought to be in terms of fresh water goes into the sea, and at estuaries, backwaters, there is need for fresh come into the sea in very large quantities, so that the marine life is not affected from fishing, and livelihood of fishing are involved, and so on. So have been cases, particularly in the parts of Rajasthan and other places, where large number of check dams were built, and the lower riparian farmers object to this system of catchment of rainwater because it deprived them of their share of the rainwater. So there is need for management plan which takes care of total quantity of rainfall, even in normal years. How to plan for it, how do you conserve it, how do you make sure that it reaches the last person, how do you make sure that aquifers are recharged, surface runoffs are taken care of, surface irrigation is taken care of, and groundwater irrigation is also taken care of. This point is very important because I want to talk about rainwater harvesting only in terms of the great emphasis now on urban runoff and urban rainwater harvest. There is a need for looking at rainwater harvesting in terms of the availability of rainwater for rural areas also, not only in urban phenomenon, there is very much rural phenomenon also. The need for both drinking water requirements and for agricultural requirements. And today a lot of the rain-fed lands have been abandoned and cultivation is not going many millets and other grains which are not grown because the rainwaters are not used for cultivation. I want to point out the need for a rainwater management policy which takes into account also food production and grain-fed production, diversifying the food basket, and how much that contribute to livelihood of the rural areas, the rural farmers, the rural livelihood of freshwater fishermen, and so on, which all depend on a good and comprehensive policy of water management in rural areas. So this has to be taken care of. We have to you say something?
Yeah, we have been receiving a lot of.
Have I run out of time?
No, we have time, but we have been receiving a lot of questions from several participants. So we would like to have a few minutes for question and answers also. That's why we wanted to interrupt you in between.
Okay. The last point that I want to say, okay, I'll just say the last point. Now, in terms of urban water supply, and so far, the emphasis has been a great deal on recharge. I think there's need to put emphasis on collection of rainwater. Some using there's a decentralized water supply system, both in households and in multi-story apartments. And in public spaces, they need to decentralize the water management system. We can do a system by which, as we producing and produce, and if possible, have a net metering system where people can feed water to a water grid. They can be incentivized in terms of water consumed and water consumed, and during monsoon period, the water supply system should stop supplying water. People should be dependent on their own water supply system, and tariffs should be high when the water supply is abundantly available, and low in summer there will be a less run on water. So I would much like to emphasize the need. There are some very good examples in Chennai of large institutions which are collecting their water from the roof into a sump, which is 2 or 3 lakh liters. Many of the apartment buildings are also starting this. There's a need to decentralize the availability of water to the homes, to the apartments, to the buildings, the public spaces, and the dependence on desalination as the ultimate answer for drinking water needs to be warned against, because this is totally environment friendly. Today, Environment Day, most unfriendly thing we can do to the environment and to coastal system is to have desalination plants. If we have water system which will rainwater harvesting systems will both recharge aquifer and give us water supply for that need, it will go a long way to solving stabilizing and sustaining the water supply system. I'll stop here.
Thank you, madam. I would request Mr. Shekhar Raghavan to give a short 1 minute to support Madam Mrs. Nair, because there were some disturbances in the voice that we were hearing. So I would request Mr. Shekhar Raghavan to just support Madam on the excellent work that the state of Tamil Nadu has already been witnessing. A short 1 minute from Mr. Shekhar Raghavan, please.
Instead of me supporting her, it was her support, that took rainwater harvesting to great heights. So that is more important. And yes, she has always been saying that rainwater should be collected and used. So that is, of course, a very, very important concept. In fact, our rain center, we collect rooftop water. The entire rooftop water is collected in a sump. We have a 50,000 liter sump, the rain center, in which the entire roof water is collected.
Okay.
Only the setback area water is used for recharge. So this is definitely a wonderful point that rainwater will have to be collected. But the point is retrofitting becomes difficult. You can't construct a sump in an already existing building. You may not have space to do it. So that is the only problem with collection. Otherwise, the people prefer collecting metro water rather than rainwater. If they have only one sump at home, which they want metro water to come and fall, not rainwater. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your quick comments on the supporting comments from Mrs. Nair. Now I have only one question, Professor, to our Dr. Saravanan. Through the Q&A box, I have one question which is most common to all of us in terms of what are the levels of capacity building that we are having in this country for such a thing on, say, rainwater harvesting or water management. What is the levels of capacity building that we can bring about? If there is nothing so far, can we bring about any levels of capacity building? Dr. Saravanan, please. You have to unmute yourself, sir. Unmute.
I think so. So to answer the query, and there are several agents that are available to develop the capacity. Yesterday, day before yesterday, Vijay was talking about from Bangalore. They're also running the capacity building training center, and most of the academic institutes are also capable of developing the capacity building on rainwater harvesting. Only thing is, these are most of the NGOs and like Dawn Foundation, like rain centers. It's all available, but it is not in the focus actually. It is not in the limelight actually. It is a time to bring all the government and non-governmental agencies to the limelight of the capacity building side, and it requires a lot of publicity and media support. And of course, we have sufficient number of agents are available in India at all level actually, at all level, including technical, environmental, and economics. On all level, we have. Only thing is everything is not come to the limelight actually. So we have.
Thank you, Dr. Saravanan. Professor Pradeep, should we take up Jagat Singh Chaudhary immediately right now, or do you have any questions?
Well, people wanted to clarify certain points from Saravanan, like what is Urani, you know? People wanted to know some issues like whether rainwater harvesting can be done within 500 meters from the seashore. Can you please clarify a few?
Yes, Urani is a term generally used in Tamil Nadu. It's also referred as a lake or pond. It is a conventional term used in Tamil Nadu actually, especially in Tamil Nadu. And definitely all the Uranis are maybe falls under system tank or non-system tank. And if it is non-system tank, then it has its own catchment area to harvest rainwater. And it's all well established. I think I have shown one satellite imagery on 39,000 tanks. So those tanks are also called as a Uranis actually. And happen to be most of the tanks are just above 1 kilometer above the seashore side actually, seashore side. And we don't have a sufficient number of tanks on the coastal belt, and we have a number of tanks just maybe 1 kilometer above the coastal belt actually.
Within 500 meters and beyond 500 meters.
Yes, we don't have the tanks near to the 500 meters of the ocean actually.
Dr. Shekhar Raghavan, you have a comment on that?
Yeah, see, I live about 800 meters from the coastline. And we have open wells here to tap groundwater. And here, recharge is more important than trying to collect it in ponds. Yes. Of course, pond can also be a recharge pond. But the point is, you don't have space to create a pond. In an urban environment, you hardly find space to create a pond. And as Saravanan was saying, close to the coast, there were no ponds. The nearest, I think, was about 2 kilometers away from the coastline. I think Puttivakam or something had a few ponds, but not within 800 meters or 1,000 meters from the coastline.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we can now invite Mr. Jagat Singh Chaudhary.
Nandakumar, would you like to take up the PPT?
Hello.
May I say the following in the beginning, that at this point in time, across the country, although there is limited awareness across the country, there have been several individuals who have been making enormous efforts in conserving water, conserving nature in very many ways. And we happen to have several of them in various occasions at ICCW. Here is an example wherein an individual with devotion could bring a small piece of land to a near natural rainforest. Because there are examples of this kind across the country, but it's important to celebrate this example from Uttarakhand. And therefore, we thought we would invite Mr. Jagat Singh Chaudhary. And Mr. Nandakumar, can you introduce the speaker?
Yeah. Sri Jagat Singh Chaudhary has been fondly known as Jungli. He's the Green Ambassador of Uttarakhand. Unfortunately, he is not able to join us today. His son is going to introduce him and take us through in the next 5 minutes about the transformation they have done in the Himalayan region. So I would request Dev Raghavendra to share his experience and that of contribution of his father.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to give a special thanks for the entire team who gave me this chance to speaking something about this very important seminar on rainwater harvesting. Myself is Dev Raghavendra, and I'm from Divine Land, Uttarakhand, student of environmental science. And me and my father, Jagat Singh Chaudhary, we both are working together for environment, for nature conservation, and for traditional water conservation method. So here we have a little bit presentation about our work. I will not speak much more, but the slide will be speak about the work. So our topic, our concept is that the role of mixed forest in restoring biodiversity, regulate climate and balance ecosystem on the earth. So next slide, sir. Next slide, sir. Yes. This person is my father, Jagat Singh Jungli. Unfortunately, he could not attend this seminar. So on behalf of Jagat Singh Chaudhary, I'm going to explain what was the work have done by the Jagat Singh Jungli. So he has started his life journey in 1973. There was a piece of barren land where he had start working on this land. जो टोटल अपना जो कॉन्सेप्ट था वो ये था कि जो बैरन पीस है, जो हमारी बैरन लैंड है, उसको फॉरेस्ट लगा के कैसे हम इकोसिस्टम को बैलेंस करें, कैसे हम उससे रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग उससे हम कर सके, और जो हमारे रिसोर्स हैं, जो हमारे पानी के स्रोत हैं जो डेड हो गए हैं, हाउ टू रिचार्ज ग्राउंड वाटर एंड हाउ टू रिचार्ज लोकल स्ट्रीम्स. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर. You everybody knows about the Himalayan women. तो जो जगत सिंह जंगली का जो हर किसी के पीछे एक कहानी होती है, तो द वुमेन्स, द हिमालयन वुमेन्स वेर द इंस्पायरिंग इन दिस स्टोरी. तो जो जगत सिंह जंगली जी का जो इंस्पायर्ड था वो महिलाएं थी जिनको देख के उन्होंने काम शुरू किया. नेक्स्ट सर. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर. यस, ये हमारा फॉरेस्ट है, और 1973 में बिल्कुल एक बैरन लैंड थी जिसको ट्रेडिशनल तरीके से हमने इसको ग्रीन पैच बनाया, और उसके बाद जो जितनी भी इसके आसपास की जो खत्म हो चुकी जो फ्रेश वाटर स्ट्रीम थी वो रिचार्ज हुई हैं. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. You can see this slide, the green patch of mixed forest within 3.4 hectare. ये लैंड आप देख सकते हैं ये पिक्चर्स को. तो ये जो इसके अगल बगल का एरिया है, इसको हम ग्रीन कवर करके पूरे बैरन लैंड को हम ग्रीन लैंड बना रहे हैं इसको. और बिफोर दिस ये बिल्कुल एक बैरन पैच था और बिल्कुल स्लोपी, क्योंकि जो हिमालयन रीजन है यहाँ पे एक कंटूर लैंड होती है, बिल्कुल स्लोपी लैंड होती है, तो इसमें हमको मिट्टी को भी बैलेंस करना पड़ता है, मिट्टी को भी रोकना पड़ता है, और मिट्टी को रोक करके पानी जो रेन, जब बारिश होगी तो थंडरिंग होगी, फॉरेस्ट अपनी तरफ पानी को, रेन को अट्रैक्ट करेगा, उसके बाद जो पानी फॉरेस्ट के अंदर आएगा उसको भी कलेक्ट करना है ताकि वो लीज होके हमारे लैंड में जाए, और उसके बाद वो जो ग्राउंड वाटर है, जो भी स्ट्रीम्स है, उसमें वो पानी फिर से रिचार्ज हो जाए। तो ये वो ग्रीन पैच है जिसमें हम काम कर रहे हैं गढ़वाल हिमालय में, रुद्रप्रयाग डिस्ट्रिक्ट में। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड, ये इनर व्यू है। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड, कैन आई हैव नेक्स्ट स्लाइड। ये कुछ हमारे यस, ये बेनिफिट ऑफ पिट टेक्नोलॉजी, ये जो मैंने कहा कि मिक्स फॉरेस्ट्री के अंदर इस तरीके से पिट को बना करके, गड्ढों को बना करके रेन वाटर को हम कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं, रिचार्ज द वाटर रिसोर्स, ताकि वो पानी फॉरेस्ट के अंदर रुके और लीज होके ग्राउंड में जाए, ग्राउंड वाटर में जाए, ताकि फॉरेस्ट को भी पानी मिले, और जो इसके नीचे जो रिसोर्स है पानी के, उसमें पानी लीज होके वो दोबारा रिचार्ज हो जाए। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर। ये हमारे एक एक्सपेरिमेंट है, माइक्रो क्लाइमेट जनरेटिंग वॉल। We are growing some, some micro climate micro plants, like there are two family of the plants, Pteridophyta, mosses, and yes, moss and orchids. So through this moss and orchid, we gain microclimate like moisture. So इससे क्या होगा कि जो मॉइस्चर वहाँ पे माइक्रोक्लाइमेट बनेगा तो थोड़ा नमी होगी, तो जो हाई एल्टीट्यूड के जो प्लांट्स हैं वो वहाँ पे ग्रो हो जाते हैं। एंड कुछ ऐसे प्लांट हैं जो पानी को, जो रेन वाटर को बहुत ज्यादा एब्जॉर्ब करते हैं, देन दे लीज इनटू द लैंड। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड, कैन आई हैव नेक्स्ट स्लाइड।
One more, next slide.
Yes, one of our major success is that now the fresh reservoir stream after, जब फॉरेस्ट लगाने के बाद, फॉरेस्ट लगाने, ये ग्रीन पैच आप देख रहे हैं और इसके नीचे ये रिजल्ट आप देख रहे हैं, ये रिजर्वायर जो हमने इसको रिजिनवेट किया, ये जो स्रोत था पानी का, जब फॉरेस्ट 10-15 साल हमने ये ग्रीन पैच को तैयार किया, तो अल्टीमेटली यहाँ पे जो हमने प्रयोग किए थे फॉरेस्ट के अंदर, चाल खाल बनाई, गड्ढा बनाया, फिर टेक्नोलॉजी, ऑल दिस, थ्रू ऑल दिस टेक्नोलॉजी, बाय द ऑल टेक्नोलॉजी, वी गॉट दिस रिजर्वायर, फ्रेश रिजर्वायर। आप देख सकते हैं इसका मेजरमेंट हम साल करते हैं, और पर ईयर इसमें पानी की क्वांटिटी जो है वो बढ़ती जाती है, क्योंकि जो ग्राउंड लेवल वाटर है इसका वो और ज्यादा जब पानी लीज करता है फॉरेस्ट। तो इसमें हमने बहुत ही स्पेशल, वी हैव, देयर आर वेरी स्पेशल काइंड ऑफ ट्री, दोज कैन अट्रैक्ट द रेन and they can absorb the rain water and leach in the land. तो बहुत ही important ये plant है। next slide sir, next slide, yes, ये result of this fresh water stream आप देख सकते हैं कि ये इस तरीके से हमने लॉस स्टोन टेक्नोलॉजी लगा के ये फॉरेस्ट के अंदर इस तरीके का हम एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं। And these are the student of MTech from सिकोहाबाद आगरा। तो ये लोग उस चीज की ट्रेनिंग लेने के लिए वहाँ पे आए थे कि किस तरीके से हम मिक्स फॉरेस्ट्री से हम पानी को, रेन वाटर को कैसे कलेक्ट कर सकते हैं और रिसोर्स को कैसे हम दोबारा जिंदा कर सकते हैं। तो ये सारे एक्सपेरिमेंट फॉरेस्ट के अंदर चल रहे हैं, लॉस्ट स्टोन, गड्ढा यंत्र, फॉरोज मेथड, एंड दिस इज बेसिकली फॉरोज मेथड। नेक्स्ट सर, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड। ये यस, द रिजल्ट ऑफ दिस, जब ये रिजर्वायर, ये जो फ्रेश वाटर स्ट्रीम वहाँ पे फूट गई उस फॉरेस्ट के नीचे, एंड उसके बाद ये हमारे इरिगेशन में ये काम आता है, और उसके बाद ये धान की जो जहाँ पे पहले यहाँ पे पानी नहीं था, और अब ये इस पानी की वजह से यहाँ पे इरिगेशन शुरू कर दिया लोगों ने, और हमारी ये छोटे छोटे खेत यहाँ पे हैं, तो हम यहाँ पे इरिगेशन कर पाते हैं। दिस इज द बेसिक रिजल्ट एंड वेरी सक्सेसफुल रिजल्ट फॉर अस। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड। और इसके अलावा हम जो ट्रेडिशनल वाटर मैनेजमेंट एंड प्रैक्टिसेस है हिमालय में, जो हमारे एंशिएंट विजडम थे, जैसे नौला वाटर कंजर्वेशन, तो किस तरीके से हम इसमें, इसके थ्रू हम और जगहों पे इसके कंजर्वेशन में कैसे हम रेन वाटर को इस इस फेज में, इस स्ट्रक्चर में कलेक्ट करके सस्टेन कर सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर। इसको नौला बोलते हैं, ये हमारे गढ़वाल हिमालय में बहुत ज्यादा होता है। एंड मिस्टर जंगली इज ऑल्सो अप्लाइंग दिस टेक्नोलॉजी इन डिफरेंट एरिया। अलग अलग एरिया में जो अलग अलग स्रोत हैं पानी के, छोटे छोटे माइक्रो, हम इसको कहते हैं माइक्रो वाटर रिसोर्स। ये जो माइक्रो वाटर रिसोर्स हैं, इनको भी रिचार्ज करने के लिए यहाँ पे प्लांटेशन किया जाता है। टेरिडोफाइटा के प्लांट लगाए जाते हैं, फर्न को लगाया जाता है, एल्गी को यहाँ पे प्रमोट किया जाता है ताकि मॉइस्चर बने और वो रेन वाटर जो है वो उसके ऊपर रुके, पौधे उसको रोकें और उसको लीज करें उसके बाद उस चैनल में। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर। ट्रैप का रेन वाटर इस तरीके से, जहाँ पे भी हमें चैनल मिलता है रेन वाटर को कलेक्ट करने के लिए, हम उसको एक चैनल बना के उसको एक पर्टिकुलर एरिया में डाल देते हैं ताकि वो रेन वाटर वेस्ट न जाए और कलेक्ट हो किसी एक लैंड में, किसी पॉन्ड में, किसी खाल में, चाल में। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर। ये तो I have already told about, we have some special kind of tree which are playing a vital role to collecting rain water. ये वो प्लांट हैं जो हमने अपने फॉरेस्ट में लगाए हैं, जो पानी को बहुत ही ज्यादा ऑब्जर्व करते हैं, उसको लैंड में लीज कर देते हैं। माइसीलिया है, टेक्सास बकाटा है, रोडोडेंड्रॉन आर्बोरियम। तो ये क्यूरिकस इंकाना ओक, इनके साथ हम वहाँ पे प्रैक्टिकल कर रहे हैं, प्रयोग कर रहे हैं इन पौधों के साथ अपने फॉरेस्ट में। और भी जगहों पे जहाँ पे भी पानी की कमी, जहाँ पे भी स्रोत सूख रहे हैं, उनके ऊपर खंतियां बना के, उनके रिज में बना के, उसके रिज में हम प्लांटेशन करते हैं। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर। कैन आई हैव नेक्स्ट? यस। तो ये जो ओक है, इसमें कैविटी फॉर द स्टोर रेन वाटर थ्रू द रूट्स। तो ये जो ओक का पेड़ है, इसको हम बैकबोन भी बोलते हैं। वी कॉल दिस ट्री नॉन एज द बैकबोन। ये हमारे हिमालय का एक बैकबोन है जो कि पानी को स्टोर करने में बहुत ही ज्यादा हेल्प करता है। और ये वाइल्ड बैम्बू है, काफल माइसीलिया है, रोडोडेंड्रॉन का प्लांट है। तो इनका जो कॉम्बिनेशन का अगर हम फॉरेस्ट तैयार करते हैं तो उस एरिया में डेफिनेटली यू विल गेट अ फ्रेश वाटर स्ट्रीम, फ्रेश वाटर रिसोर्स ऑफ दिस। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर।
श्री जगत सिंह जी, अभी हमारे पास सिर्फ दो मिनट बचे हुए हैं ये पूरा
नेक्स्ट स्लाइड
खत्म करने के लिए।
नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सर।
I think it's ended.
Sir, I have finished. Sorry, finished, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jagat Singh Chaudhary. Convey our best regards to your father, who has done excellent work and shared it with us. And we thank you for sharing his work and probably your support to him also. And we request you to come back to our platforms again and again to share your excellent work. Now I would leave it to Professor Pradeep to conclude the session and suggest a way forward. Thank you, Professor.
Well, it has been an excellent session. I don't know whether we are sort of summarizing this by Mr. Nandakumar. Is it available?
We haven't planned it because the time is exceeded. So we will...
Right. So what has come out is that we have tremendous understanding in this area. We have excellent practitioners in the field. There have been a number of examples of policy initiatives. There have been tremendous efforts by the government to ensure that rainwater harvesting is practiced in states. What is needed, despite all that, as Dr. Shekhar Raghavan was talking about yesterday, we have been talking about this for 5,000 years, but there is no harm in doing this for some more time. Well, on the one side, there is a need to talk about it, but there is a need to consolidate all of these, ensure that solutions, technologies, and practitioners are available wherever this is needed. Right now on this Q&A box, I see questions as to where is this available, how can I get this done? There is a need for a compendium. And there is a need for probably a searchable resource as to where this can be done, how it can be done, can I get this done tomorrow? Now, of course, all of these, in fact, many on this panel will be knowing a whole lot more about such efforts. In fact, Shivakumar shared with us as to a mobile application. Vijay Raj talked about a center that is existing there where he can train people at no cost. And there are centers across the country, like this great initiative of Shekhar Raghavan on the RAIN Center. And he is ready to replicate this activity, support people, and of course, people can visit and learn from him and his team of people. Sharavanan has been talking about centers of the kind that Anna University is having. So there is a whole lot available, but there is a need for consolidation. There is a need to provide people with information, accessible information as quickly as possible. This is where probably centers like ICCW can initiate some action. That is one thing I see that is coming out. The second thing is that although there have been lots and lots of policy initiatives, I was just talking to people in Kerala, that although there are initiatives, it is impossible to ensure that rainwater harvesting is done in existing structures. And there are always difficulties associated with that. And Vijay Raj was talking about people are willing to even pay fines than implementing rainwater harvesting. So what can be done to ensure that existing structures do have rainwater harvesting, and how can policy initiatives help? How can this be new business opportunities? All of these need to be talked about as well. The third thing, despite all these capacity building, etc. efforts, I do not see large-scale initiatives across the country to make rainwater harvesting as part of a program. Although there are programs available, there are MTech, etc. programs available, it is not integrated into every program. And there is a need to initiate such activities across the country. Now, apart from that, if there are additional thoughts that are coming out from people, kindly do share it. Probably let us keep about a couple of minutes to take insights from anyone else as to what has come out. And then let us conclude, Mr. Sripati.
Thank you, Professor. Can I invite Mr. Shivakumar, Mr. Vijay Raj, Mr. Shekhar Raghavan to share some of your thoughts quickly before we conclude?
Thank you, Sripati. Thank you, Professor Pradeep. Yeah, it is an excellent journey we had in the last 5 days. I should really appreciate ICCW. Yeah, see, the answer from all this is we have the technology, we have the potential, we have everything. Only thing is the will to do that has to come, because as though the water is being made to look as though it is freely available to everyone, and the provider is the government or the panchayat or the different people. So we need to change that mindset. I am sure that with awareness campaigns and the training programs and the skill development activities which have been in the pipeline and we have been doing, we should be in a position to take it forward. And I wish all the best to everyone who has been participated here, more than 500 and odd people, and they will be the water warriors and the ambassadors to convey this message across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shivakumar, for your support once again. Anybody else would like to say something before we conclude?
Sripati, the app is active now.
Okay.
It is rwh-advisor.in. rwh-advisor.in.
We have
And
shared.
it's also available on the mobile. You can.
We have already shared it also.
Yes, yes, it's already. Thank you.
Mr. Shekhar, do you have any comments?
As I said, creating rain centers. This has been my thought throughout. Even Sheila Nair yesterday was supporting that. Rain centers in at least metro cities to start with, then smaller towns and so on. And we have prepared some instruction manuals for designing a suitable rainwater harvesting system for an apartment and so on. That can be also shared, that can be brought out as a manual by ICCW and so on. And then several studies I have in mind, like how far rejuvenating our traditional water bodies in every city will help manage its water in a better manner. That is completely being ignored. It is unfair. For example, take Chennai. Chennai is still being supported by 3 water bodies which were originally irrigation tanks. So like that, I want to make a study of several cities in India, find out how much is traditional harvesting helping them as on date, and how in future that can be improved and increased. Thank you.
I would.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. I would like to sum up here. It was a wonderful session, and it has helped many of us to understand and to know more knowledge about it. I would like to submit here that we have got a reach in about 270 cities, big and small, where we have a trained persons to train these warriors. Whoever wants in our session, who have attended, they can be trained free of cost. And various cities from Meghalaya to Kerala to all parts of the country, we have got persons who are ready. I was speaking to many of our channel partners, and they are ready to train anybody who wants to come free of cost and help them to take their career and be a water warriors. So if anybody is interested, they can contact us. They can be trained. NGOs, groups who can take this as a profession and be the water warriors. And let's make India, water surplus. All of us join hands and make India water surplus.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Dr. Ramya, your concluding remarks.
We have had a stimulating and motivating 5 days of lectures around rainwater harvesting. We listened to people who have devoted their lives for this passion. Mr. Shivakumar, Dr. Rajendra Singh, Mr. Vijay Raj, Dr. Shekhar Raghavan, Dr. Saravanan, Madam Shanta Sheila Nair, and also Jagat Singh Jangli ji and his son. Thanks for conveying his message. And we all learned from their experiences. We couldn't have asked for a better start. On the eve of the World Environment Day, a time for nature is the theme. Rainwater harvesting is a hidden weapon for all of us, as we discussed in the talks. It's a selfish act that will benefit us and the nature. ICCW has taken actionable steps in this direction to ensure that India can become self-reliant in water. By implementing rainwater harvesting with partners across the country, ensuring better employment for laborers and business opportunities for entrepreneurs, and humongous savings by warding off droughts and floods. So our team looks forward to your engagement with us in this journey. And I would like to thank one and all for your participation and look forward to your future engagement. Thank you.